Glad you're here.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then. What we do. What we do. You make it down to the festival?
No, I did not know. I didn't even go to church because they were parking lot. In my church is selling spaces, even to members. Mm-mm.
If we have a small turnout for church also, and I think that's the reason.
We had a good weekend, there's no rain.
Yeah, beautiful.
But still.
Don't break it. Good.
Good morning. I'd like to begin today's April meeting of the Somerville Tree Protection Board. First order of business is a review of the notes from the past meeting. Are there any questions? Discussion? Move to approve.
Seconded.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Minutes are approved. We have some old business. The first item is 117, excuse me, Parkwood Drive.
Yes, sir.
We visited twice, and we know pretty much the assertion and the concern. And so we're here to discuss any further we can, the removal of what appears to be a quite unique tree and large, grand tree, golden larch in the town of Somerville or generally in the Low Country. So the statement is, of course, you're worried about the slab being cracked by the tree.
Yes, sir.
And I still stand by my request that the base of the foundation adjacent to the tree be examined, inspected one way or another, air spayed by hand to see if roots are actually indeed challenging it. Because it's impossible to see from the outside, and it's also impossible to see from the inside because of the flooring that was put in place. You know, it really is sort of a mystery still. And you would ask me what I would do if it were my yard, and that's what I would do. But I'm not the only person here. So who else has comments or questions?
No, I concur. Having looked around the whole building and on the interior, there are, especially on the aprons, in the front and the rear, I can see cracks that may be coming from some tree, but they're not coming from the larch tree. Well, take that back. I doubt seriously because they're so far away. And before I could determine that the larch tree has roots that are threatening the foundation or the flooring of that shed, I just have to see that they are indeed traveling towards the foundation, and you can't see it as it is. So I agree that before I could agree with its removal, that it would have root system would along that side of the building would need to be exposed.
Yep, I would agree with that. I just think along that side of the building where the tree is located, just, trenching down there or some kind of means, just seeing if there are roots there and how big they are and if they are doing any damage to that slab of concrete. Otherwise, the tree is a beautiful tree, is healthy, but I just don't know if the roots are doing any damage to the building without having that examined.
So may I interject, y'all?
Sure.
So we do understand, it's a proven science that the root system in a lot of ways doesn't mirror the canopy of the tree. The canopy is way past that roof line. There's plenty of root system over there. Trees just within 10 feet of the foundation. He does, there's a large, very long, very, uniform crash running along that. Everybody, it's visible to everybody. I just don't see why you should have to go through extra steps here. Because we know there's roots. We know there's roots that have grown that are, surely underneath the footing. Whether they've penetrated through the footing or gone under the footing and back up is really the only thing that excavation is going to determine. And this is real damage to this slab, to his shop. I mean, we're not imagining that there's damage. There's actual real damage.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just, I don't know, if it was a tree that belonged here, maybe, or a little bit more of a spectacular tree, but I still can't even believe that tree survived here, to be honest with you.
But that tree is also I think it's affecting my neighbor's pool. I talked to him the other day and he said he had 2 cracks on that side.
Are you talking about Chalice?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, he's 2 houses away, right?
No, ma'am, he's right next to me.
Going down the hill.
I got one on both sides. I got Stephen on one side and Converse on the other.
Whose house is it?
Converse
Which is down the hill,
uphill.
uphill? Okay, I didn't even see a pool there. That's quite a distance.
Sir,
I said, that's quite a distance to that.
it had
pool.
some big limbs on it though.
It's a bit of a stretch for him to say that, and from your yard even. I've
Okay.
got a live oak in my yard, and it's closer to my house than your tree is to your structure. And I'm going to have the same thing done, the root pruning, and mine is closer, but it's a live oak, and I want to keep the tree. It's a heck of a lot cheaper to do root pruning than it is to remove a tree. And you've got cracks in that foundation in front of your structure.
Yeah, that's from a fireplace. My wife put one of them wood burning things in the front. And that's what cracked that cement up in the front.
Well, I was wondering if you thought that was, the tree did that too. But
No.
yeah, none of that is proof. And it's just so much easier to do a little extra excavation. And this is not that much. And if there is a root there and you cut it, this is something like, you've got still 80% approximately root system still there.
Can't
And-
tell people to cut roots that close to the tree.
Well, we're not,
You gotta stop telling people that it is a poor practice. You are introducing decay and fungal activity into the root system, and not just an exterior feeding root system. We're talking critical root zone underneath the canopy. I will never, ever recommend doing that to a customer. I've had people ask me all the time, and it is a poor practice. We are just introducing problems to the tree so that we can hold on to a tree that shouldn't be there in the first place, and then they're gonna have to deal with the root rot that's gonna happen later.
when that tree is that far away and you're
It's not
doing,
that far. 10 feet is
we
not
said
that
10 feet, I didn't measure, but,
far. 10 feet, that tree from the foundation is from me to the front of Gulf's Cove.
and,
That's 10 feet right here.
well, we have had a lot of people that have pruned roots and have had no problem. And I feel like that it saved them a lot of money to take that avenue. And that's the one I'm going to do. And my house is closer to the tree than yours is.
Let me ask you one question.
That's great. That's great. If that's your property, but as a professional arborist, as somebody that's worked with trees through so many construction projects, I cannot tell you. And I've seen the damage that happens. You are causing damage to the tree. A live oak is a completely different species than a larch as well. What you can do to a live oak, you cannot do to every other tree. It is one of the few trees that does well in our area that is extremely resistant to root rot in itself. A larch is not resistant to root rot. Root rot will overcome that root system very quickly. We're not talking about damage that he's gonna have a year down the road, 10 years down the road. We're talking, well, maybe a year, but 10 years down the road is, is a far estimate. Where a live oak can hold that, it's resistant to it. It just reduces the slow of it because of the growth of wood, but a larch is like that. It will take that quickly. And now we're compromising. Root pruning in this situation is not an option, in my opinion.
Hey, can I get another review on root pruning, please?
Yeah, Nathaniel's of course right, that it's better not to sever the roots of a tree if you can avoid it. But there are numerous instances where like him, I've been involved in root mitigation and construction projects, highway projects, that sort of stuff. And it can be done, in my opinion, in my experience, and you can save the tree, not just live oaks, but other trees as well. Certainly, I've never pruned the roots on a larch tree because I've never seen one until I saw this one here in this part of the country. And so I don't have any experience with them, and none of us do, or not many of us do, unless we've worked up north. So I'm not familiar with their root systems. But I think it can be done. But beyond that, as I look at that property, I'm not sure that it's the roots of that tree that are causing the crack in the inside. And it's hard for me to pass judgment until I see that there are roots that are actually abutting the foundation of that building and causing some sort of disruption. So that's sort of my take on it.
I got one question for y'all. If I cut the roots and 5 years down the road, the tree dies, are y'all, town of Somerville, gonna pay to get the tree down? Because I'm willing to do right now, but y'all want me to elongate this thing. So when the tree dies and falls on my shop or in Carm versus Pool, and the insurance starts asking me questions, I'm gonna point my finger back to y'all. Say, y'all the ones that demanded for me to do this. So are y'all gonna be responsible for it?
Mr. Jameson, how long have you noticed the crack in your workshop there?
Well, my father's been working in there till he passed away, and I showed y'all the rubber mats that we put on the floor
Right.
so that he could walk on it. So the woods over one side, I had a boat in there, just got rid of, and then the rest of it was in mats. Well, we went to clean it up. That's when I realized the crack had gone all the way through.
Okay.
So I don't know how long the crack's been there.
And I asked you how deep was this concrete, and you said you didn't know.
All right, but if
That-
you want to know, that shop was built on the code, it's the town of Somerville. So the building inspector had to come and look at it and make sure it had enough cement in it, wouldn't he? That's what the building inspector's for. So if it ain't enough cement in there, the town of Somerville wasn't doing their job. But I can guarantee you one thing, my daddy did all that. If they said 2.5, it's probably got 3 or 3.5 in it.
Sounds like your dad was a smart man.
Sir, ma'am.
Sounds like your dad was a smart man.
Any other comments?
No.
No, I still think that it's worth looking at. Is there a conceivable chance that it has not, we don't know, we can't prove it. Is it possible that the crack would be created that far? Realize that's the drip line of what used to be there, because lots of major lower branches have been already removed. You can see the aftermath and them sprouting.
And
That a root function would be capable of that far in cracking a slab. The root growth is not going to be the same under a slab that it is in open ground, is it?
no, and it's possible, but
Right?
It could easily, and plus it's concrete too, so it could cause a fracture that can travel without much weight.
and if it's old concrete, the active life of concrete is about 35 years. So as it reaches, and I don't know how old this is, when it was
30.
poured. See, so it's starting to reach the end of its viability, so that after that, it loses some of its integrity. But that's neither here nor there. I think that and I'm not asking that any roots be cut. If we can if I might change my mind if I see that there is a very large root that could cause damage, that is abutting the building or could be causing damage. I may change my mind, but I just can't form an opinion based on what I see.
Yeah, there's a lot that we just don't see and can't see.
I'll make a motion that we do request that you examine the possibility or probability of the existence of roots challenging your foundation, at which point we can notify our arborist and we'll be happy to take a look.
So he's gonna come out and look at it?
If you excavate it, yes.
No, I'm not digging. But I can tell you this much, that we do all know there's a tree growing in that canal, right?
Yeah, you showed us a tree back there.
And it's blocking up the water, right?
I don't know if it's blocking up the water. I see exposed roots on that side of the canal though, but I
So
don't,
when Tim Touchberry comes to me, Russ Touchberry comes to me and asks me why I won't let the town come on my place to cut that tree down, I'm gonna show him that tree right there. I'm gonna say, nope. If you let him come in there and cut my tree down, he can get that tree out at the same time and my backyard will not be tore up. But I'm not having the town come in there and tear up what I've been planting back there for a hedge to just to get a tree out when it could have gotten done easier. So you let me cut my tree down and while he's in there, let him get the tree out the canal.
Well, I'll be happy to have a discussion with Mr. Touchberry about that. That's not part of this, consideration. We're here simply to consider the desire of you to remove the large tree. The other one is irrelevant to our, we have nothing to do with that.
Well, you're not gonna come down my place to get that tree.
I'm not in the department that doesn't have any relevance to that, so that will have to be worked out independently with the agency stormwater. And ultimately, the town administrator, if need be. We are not employees of the town. We don't do that. So I have a motion outstanding.
second.
Can you rephrase the motion, please, Mr. Chairman?
I move that we have an examination of the foundation to establish the challenge that roots of that tree are creating, at which time our arborist will revisit and give the word on removing the tree or not.
Well, here's my question. Are we saying that as a body that we're insisting that that happen, or that if it happens and we can go inspect it, then we might change our mind? So are we deferring our decision until we can see that and
Yes.
he can expose it or not? If he chooses not to expose it, then
Yeah.
nothing else happens.
We're deferring until there's an ability to examine the threat that the roots provide for that foundation.
If we find significant roots that are, growing, budding along the foundation, as you said, or, causing damage, is the staff will have to make a choice, or do we have to leave this excavated opening for the board to come back out and look?
No, I think the arborist could come out the same day. We do not have to do it. No. That was part of the wording. The arborist will decide. And you've had issues with this in other trees in the past. It'll be exactly the same. Yep.
Okay.
So you want me to dig alongside that building?
Yes, sir.
So who's gonna dig alongside the building? I'm gonna hire somebody?
It'd be a heck of a lot cheaper to have that done than it would to remove the tree.
I don't know.
You have an air
do.
spade?
Yeah. Yes, I just don't like using it. Yes.
Yeah.
It makes
Well,
me-
we're talking about something like a 2-inch trench right at the, structure.
Yeah, I mean,
I
we
mean,
would probably just do a hand trench along the area that's being affected and locate the problem.
So then if if the roots are there, then y'all can still say you have to cut the roots.
Well, what they're saying is, what we'll do is we'll let the town arborist know, and he'll come out, make a determination
Yeah.
from there. So.
I have a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Nathaniel. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next order of business is Somerville Commons.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
How are you all today?
Are you?
Good. So this is a application that was brought to the board, I think in 2020, 2021. It was approved. I wasn't part of the discussions with the board at that time. Someone else was with our company. I'm not sure how many of you were part of that as well. But we went through the process with you all. We saved some trees and reworked some of our site plan based on 1 or 2 meetings here with you all. For various reasons, the project still hasn't yet gone under construction. We're very close. Like I said, many reasons. And the approval for that has expired. So we're just here to kind of reapprove that. So we can move forward with our project. I can go into details of the site plan if you need to. Let me know what you need or what you want. I'll help you out.
And you're with Stantec or?
Yes, sir.
Could you move up a little more, scroll up a little bit more, Justin? There, that has the tree save areas. And I had meant to look this up last night and forgot. I don't think I could have read it on my phone anyhow. The date of this drawing. Anybody see that?
No.
I don't see it.
The only point I'm making is if this is the past drawing, has anything changed with respect to the trees being saved?
No, sir. The site plan that was reviewed and approved before has not changed.
Okay.
And the tree saves remain. The application for removal and save is exactly the same.
So what that means, Mr. Chairman, is that out of 980 trees, they're proposing to save 7, is that right?
That sounds right.
Yeah, that sounds horrible to me. Just that a development company that's not from around here probably couldn't do this, remove that many trees in their town, but come to our town and just denude the landscape. That's horrid in my mind. Just completely unsympathetic to the community when you could probably move a building, remove a building, do something and save much more of the public landscape or of the landscape.
The major constraint on this site was the terrain. The existing terrain exceeds ADA, and we're trying to make the whole site compliant with ADA. So we're having to bring in fill to make that work. And the trees that we look to save, the ones that were worth saving, would require walls around those to, tree wells. And it just didn't seem like it was going to be feasible to do that.
Are you speaking basically about everything in the back?
Excuse me, sir?
Are you speaking about the massive trees along the back? Or are you speaking of some scattered trees in the
Just-
primary save
Yeah,
area?
scattered.
Okay. I understand there were drainage and grade complications with the site. What was more striking to me was the entire rear of the property is everything is gone.
Talking along Farm Springs.
Is that the name of the road? Okay. I have no idea because we don't get involved in the engineering. Obviously, we're not engineers. What troubled me was the possibility that a reduced amount of development could have saved some of that scenery. In other words, less buildings. I realize how these plans are put together, and you got to do a lot of upfront work, and it figured very well that to have the development and the structures where they are, everything would have to go just to grade it for ADA, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So anyhow, we occasionally deal with other developers, and there sometimes seems to be more flexibility. You're the engineering firm. You didn't draw the plans. I imagine is your requirement is to fit in what the owner wants to put in and what the limits are of the ordinance that permits you to put in what you did. Correct?
That's right. I don't think in this zone, and Tim can correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't have a maximum density.
None of our districts have.
So this is to find the best site for the best project was to come up with this layout.
That sounds so easy. Anyhow, that's just where I come from, being on the tree protection board as opposed to, a site engineer. And
This site plan and architecture did go through the town's architectural review board.
I'm
yeah.
totally aware of that.
Yeah.
And it's gone, and they're gonna go through twice if it hasn't already.
It's gone through many times.
Okay, so anyway, I'm just stating an opinion, that was alluded to by my colleague here, and that is that, there's a certain sense that we can infer of it insensitivity to removing so much of a landscape. I know it happened right next door, so we can't say you're the only one. So I'm simply just stating an opinion. It's tough to see that happen when it happens. Anyhow, any other discussion or thoughts?
Just a question, the landscaping that's gonna go in after all this goes in, is that included in this package somewhere?
Yeah, it's on the screen right now.
I don't see a listing of the trees that are gonna be going in, I guess the canopy trees. I just was curious as how many were gonna be put in the landscape for this project.
I don't recall offhand, and we don't, looks like we have our plant schedule as part of the package, but it's a substantial landscape package that's being replaced.
It is?
Yeah.
Well, if y'all can make it more substantial than what you have, it would always be good, but, we just trying to recoup some of the trees that we're losing from this large project.
Anything else?
You know,
I'll make a motion that we approve the former tree protection, tree removal plan.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
with great reluctance. Aye.
Yeah,
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
stand.
Next is 103 Shenandoah Court. And I really wish the owner were here. So we'll go ahead and discuss the trees in their absence.
Okay.
So we had 3 trees. I'll name the trees and describe them, and then everybody can say what they wish. We have a very large red oak on the right-hand side of the driveway. It was a concern that it was challenging the driveway itself. Didn't really appear to be otherwise a very healthy tree. Tree number 2 was a large hickory, what we think. It was very late to be leafing out. And again, a very healthy tree, a large tree. 2 issues. One, the owner felt like it was challenging the foundation. We could not find anything other than separated mortar in a couple of places of the bricks on the skirting. There was no shifting of bricks or anything. But the tree was doing some work on the concrete walkway going to the front door in terms of actually just cracking it. And then the 3rd tree was a sweet gum in the backyard. A large sweet gum that was a little rough, but it seemed to be very healthy. And questions on individual trees, observations?
Yeah, just observation, the tree closest to the driveway, closest to the house that the applicant thought was endangering the foundation as well as the sidewalk. It is definitely endangering the sidewalk, and I don't see a remedy for that. I just don't see any remedy at all for and so that's one where I can vote to approve removal. I just don't see any remedy for it whatsoever. And even though we didn't find any shifting in the brick adjacent to the house, if it's not root pruned on that side and there's not enough room to do so, then that's probably just a matter of time before something happens there. So I would support removal of that tree. The tree in the driveway is really not, there are no cracks in the driveway that are caused by that tree. It's just the, root system, as you can see on the left by the car there, it's just sort of buttress and has lipped over the top of the drive. And it's just sitting on top. So it's not cracking the driveway, not causing any real damage. It may have encroached onto the drive 4 to 6 inches, but there's no need in my mind to remove that tree whatsoever. And the sweet gum in the back is just, I see absolutely no reason to remove that. So those are my observations.
Anyone else? Well,
Yeah, the tree we're looking at right now, I see that it looks like there was a tree or a portion of this tree removed right there.
right.
What did y'all find with that? Anything at all?
Well, that's right.
No, there was no decay or anything that we could find. We sounded it, did sonic
Yeah.
testing as well as probed it and didn't find anything.
Okay.
All right. I very much wish the owner were here because one option on the sidewalk, and we talked about it, was to have it be a pervious sidewalk for a distance. In other words, gravel instead of contained gravel, stones of one sort or another, as opposed to a solid slab. It's obviously the solid slab is not gonna, you could try and fix it, but that'd probably be tricky as well. I didn't get much feeling from the owner that they were that concerned about the sidewalk. More concerned about, and reasonably so, more concerned about the potential for challenging the foundation. I wish we could entertain that discussion. Justin, what are your feelings about this tree?
Well, I think we determined it was a big nut hickory tree.
Okay,
There's no evidence of foundation damage, but it was, like Danny was saying, kind of a problem tree where it was located. I saw no evidence of foundation damage. I do think there is evidence of sidewalk damage.
Huh,
there.
yeah.
So she does have to be, if that's her main concern. I think talking to her, she was mostly worried about the foundation.
How far is the tree from the foundation of the house?
I believe it was about 10 feet.
Okay.
So if she was here, it would have been nice to talk, see what her.
Yeah.
concern is.
because we were never able to address that question. Would she be willing to with some kind of compromise on the sidewalk? She said she loved her trees, just hated to have them cut down.
Yeah.
We hear that a lot.
Yeah,
So-
I just, I'm not even sure that solves the problem of breaking concrete, but I don't know if that solves a tripping hazard issue, but to have a pervious substance.
It sounds like something that could, keep coming back and being a safety issue at times, to me anyway, but it's just my thoughts on it.
That was my thought as well.
Did you have a recommendation in mind, Justin? I know it's a grand tree and it's iffy enough that you needed to pass it on to us.
Right, and I think this one was first reviewed by Jimmy Clark. He was out there first.
Oh,
I agree
okay.
with
Yes,
with the red oak on the driveway.
Right.
I don't think that needs to come out. I do not think the sweet gum in the backyard needs to come out. The hickory on the corner of the house there, that was questionable. I think there's an argument for both sides of it.
well, that's all the discussion I have. I could make a motion to defer, but I don't like to always do that. If we don't have to. But can I have a motion?
Yeah, I move to grant the removal of the hickory adjacent to the sidewalk and reject the removal of the other two.
I'll second that.
Any last thoughts? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion passes. Next order of business. 404 South Magnolia. One large pine tree.
She's out of town. She asked me to be here for her.
We spent a lot of time looking at the tree. We spent a lot of time talking with the owners. So I know where they stand. I think the biggest reason was they were worried about their initial concern was a limb coming down and hitting a car, a dead limb. And there was some big limbs going on over the neighbor's yard, which would be fine for her to remove if that were, a pressing issue. She didn't ever say whether neighbors complained or if she did, I didn't hear it. We did see I don't know if you can call them cankers or not, but we did see the defects in the bowl. They're very similar to each other. Saw some other trees further down the hill that need a lot more work than that one, but
Yeah, I think this tree, it looks healthy, from the ground. I don't know, how bad or if they're that bad at all, those two spots on either side of the trunk of the tree, the one a little further up towards the top and one, further down. Have you been up there and actually got up there and looked at it and tested, see?
Yes, the dead spots.
Okay,
One on the side that you took a picture of right there is the one from Magnolia.
mm-hmm,
It's definitely has more of a canker, like the crusty, weeping appearance. The one on the other side that's harder to see from the ground is more of a cavity, it's just a dead spot.
so how far did those go into the trunk, the decay? Okay.
They're consistent with what I've seen, potential failure points.
Nathaniel, when you say dead spots, what do you mean by that?
So what I'm pretty sure happened, what caused it is a lower than guy,
hmm,
and it stayed on too long,
Right.
and so traffic past that player, and it's just not left the trunk. That's
So were you able to sound it sonically or do any resistance testing or anything like that in those?
Pro did while we did the pruning on, we elevated that tree last middle of last.
Right.
His home. That tree's more of a threat.
Right.
His home than hers. So he's worried about it, but, they just didn't put together resources.
Sure. When you probe those spots, how deep did your probe go in?
Well, I don't
When you probed it, what did you probe it with?
see a word, I try to.
Invasive stuff.
There, been there, then from there, it's like, all right, so this tree, sure, it's gonna be fine for all of our thunderstorms, all of our normal stuff. Because we're the coastal, obviously. Those are the risks that I try to mitigate up to a certain point, of course, nobody can mitigate massive storm.
Right.
But for the smaller hurricane and the heavier tropical storms. That's what I worry about with this.
Could you, do any other, mitigating, potential problems with the tree by taking any of those branches off on that side of the house, the neighbor side of the house. Does that make sense at all to do anything like that?
I don't think it, I mean, obviously, if we could elevate a little bit, and if the tree was perfectly healthy, we would elevate a little bit. But I don't want to pull, stabilizing and food production off that tree, unless it was absolutely necessary and that limb was causing, specific damage, especially when I'm dealing with any sort of wound or risk. The more limb structure that's on a pine tree, the more stable it's gonna be, especially in the winter. So taking limbs off, bottom up, all that's doing is creating a bigger sail to catch the wind up high and less stability on the trunk system. So I try not to let, I try to talk people away from.
Mhm.
Give them 50, 60 clearance from tip to roof. I'm happy.
How much? 15 feet from what to what?
I like my advice for residential is 15 to 16 feet of clearance from tip to roof, branch tip to roof
The roof. Oh, okay.
for elevation stuff.
I thought you said the root and I was wondering what I was calling about.
Can we see that? Was there another photograph of this tree, the first one that we saw? I have it. So Nathaniel, can you see it? There is if we look at I wish I had the cursor, but if we look at that discolored section. And then, yeah, okay, there you go, thank you. And then down below it is some sort of growth. What is that? Were you able to tell when you were up there? Some sort of growth right there.
It looks like a red heart conch.
Yeah, it's just another small section of decay. I think they've linked up together. That, and like I said, that one on that side was much less invasive from the other side. I think it penetrates past the canyon just as well, but it's still holding on to that exterior covering, even though it's dead underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
But the one on the other side, bark structure was gone off it. And it was more, it looked, it reminded me of that old cat thing that, guys saw.
Cat face.
Looked a little bit more like that. Or the twisting of the interior structure, the exterior bark there is gone. It was just dead, dead silent.
Has a pretty healthy crown, but again, that's not your concern. This is not affecting that, but this is simply creating a potential snap risk in an extreme wind.
I thought this is, this is my philosophy with handling pine tree risk. I can't tell you how many times I've doubled my money into not even win it to having max. Because there's not a win or failure. I'm not worried about the pine. There's always a chance that there's root rot and uprooting. But that type of failure usually lends less damage than snap. Much. That's the risk that I have to possibly look at. It's just too much truth there right next to the house.
Yeah. So
Any more discussion? Any more questions?
So just like probing the tree with a resistograph, you prefer not to do that, you said?
Yep, and this applies, so I'm not, a resistograph in that one section, right, it's just gonna, it'll tell me the percentage of decay in this one split section. And I know that there's decay, so I know that this is a failure point for good size storm. And only because I've seen so many of them fail with damage less than that. Small amount of decay that causes a weakness in the trunk and a failure point in the trunk. And that's why I just don't waste, up till now, I just haven't wasted my time with this stress.
Okay. And you did do some pruning on this tree, what, 6 months ago or was it late?
Yeah, that limb right there, it stretched all the way across. It was over her house, actually.
Those sections of the tree, those weak points, have those gotten bigger, you think, or do you recall? the
Probably
size?
not the last 6 months.
Mhm.
It's more of a slow internal. That's, I'm more concerned with how much is growing up. the side
Mhm.
than the outside.
Sure, yeah.
It always grows there and it shows later.
Okay.
Anyone want to make a motion?
Yeah, for as much as I respect his, Nathaniel's opinion, he and I are going to differ on this one. Only that I would love to see a little further testing. And whether it's, not necessarily resistograph, but just some sort of resistance testing or um, even a mallet testing where we can feel comfortable that that is enough decay, that there is enough decay. If indeed, excuse me, if indeed there is, to warrant removal of this big tree. So I'd like to, I move that we deny removal unless further testing is done to indicate that that is a structurally weak spot with
Second that.
resistance testing or sonar.
I second that.
But
You have any,
what is a mallet test?
Well, just,
Especially since
no, I can't. But so that's, we'll have to work that out. The arborist, no, I can be there, but,
we've already done, we've already had the side. That's not there. And I'm telling you, the one that you guys are looking at here, that's not the one that concerns me.
right.
It's the one on the other side. And I'm getting the feeling that it's not that.
when we saw it, it's much higher.
Yeah,
Huh?
we did the best we could with, from the ground.
It's not that one.
Well, it's higher. You have to get around the back and go down the back of the hill to see it. Yeah, I saw it.
We even had the binoculars out trying to see up. And I'm tall, but not that tall.
So you're not comfortable with that?
You got to the board, you got the right.
Right, but
You're not disagree with me. I'm not gonna change my opinion of it though.
Mhm.
Depending on what I find, it's still gonna be failure.
right.
Okay, that's understood.
That's something that, I have to. Right. That nobody here can sit here and tell me it's not realistic, that the battery is not a risk size, so if I have the ability to do this.
Right.
And that's really where, that's how I approach this. And because we live with coastal storms, it opens us up to the potential of heavier impact with much less.
Right, well,
He,
I do understand your position and I appreciate your position, but, I just would like to see a little more evidence. So if you could arrange to, if your client's willing, to, go up in the tree or send someone up in the tree and notify the arborist when you can do it and coordinate with his schedule so that at least he can be on site, to witness whatever testing you do. And then let's defer until we see the results of that. So that is my motion, Mr. Chairman, that we defer until further testing is done.
And I seconded it.
Do we need here now to agree on what additional examination can be done since you're gonna be doing it, do you have thoughts on how you can make
Well,
it more,
Tell me what you're, how about that? What
Well,
exactly-
I would, you don't like to do resistance testing, and that's what I would like to see, you know, with a 330, it's the right size bed. I would like to see some resistance testing on those spaces to determine as best we can, the extent of the decay. And it doesn't need to be a resistograph. If you got one and want to use it, that's fine. But just, I'd like to know the correlation between sound wood or sturdy wood and decayed wood in those spots that where that's taking place, where the
So at what point would you say that there's enough decay? I guess that's what I'm asking.
I'd make a decision I'd make a decision after after I knew what you found. But with the pine, I mean, we can look it up in the pine. If I saw 20%, I mean, that's hard, that's a hard number to throw out, Nathaniel. And so but one,
It's like, what is the specific number? Because it's not just based on, it also based on an unquantifiable idea of what is the health of that tree? What is the health of the wood around this decay?
well,
Because the resistograph's not gonna tell us that.
Yeah.
It's gonna tell us how much energy-
yeah, I understand.
how many what?
how much energy stores the
Oh,
tree
okay.
has, and that's gonna, you know, that's kind of what I look at as how strong is that actual wood?
He's not gonna tell you anything about above or below either,
No.
as far as
It's not,
gravity.
yeah, it's not gonna say, you know,
And-
above or below, and of course, if I have, which I don't, I wish I did have one, but I don't. You know, you have to take those soundings, you know, on either side of that location.
Right.
Such-
Right. But, and that's where we get to, and this is something you're very familiar with, that's where we get to trusting our background and our knowledge and our instincts on once you determine, as you've been doing with it, once you determine that, well, there's X amount of decay on this side of the wound, and if I come in diametrically opposed, there's X amount on this side, then your experience says, yeah, this is a risk. This needs to come down. And that'll help me feel like I'm making the right decision and not just removing a tree because it has some defects. So
So
that,
is this something that Justin's gonna be on site when this is done? Is it something? that he
I
can
think
go-
that's better. Yeah, I think so.
Just what do you, guys, I'd like to hear. Sure.
You know, we were limited with our assessment because we were obviously on the ground. We used not the roots. You could see there was some growth there, but not the extent of, like we were talking about how far inward it goes, where the tree put up there, and they're stopped it, you know. So I get the argument of wondering how far does that decay go? I get the argument that it's structurally compromised, even if it is healed. There's some dead wind there, and that's a structural compromise. High wind right below that canopy, so it could be a point of where it could potentially break there. You know, without having more information, I couldn't say whether that will happen or not. It was kind of protected in there with other trees. It wasn't wide open, you know, it wasn't right open in an open spot. So it had that dynamic where it wasn't going to get hit directly with wind. So I agree with, I would like to see a little more evidence of what's going on there, what that looks like. I'm not sure. I mean, the resistograph is nice, but like you said, there's issues with that as well. I don't know what that necessarily looks like, but doing some sounding, maybe even peeling back a little bit, see, I know you said you probed it. I'm assuming just with a stick or some sort of probe, yeah, just to try to get in there. Maybe just doing that a little more in depth. And I could certainly be up there on site with you and kind of discuss it.
You okay with that, Nathaniel?
Sounds good.
I don't have a choice. No, I'm not okay with it, but.
Well, we haven't voted yet.
It is what it is. I would obviously, I prefer not to waste.
Okay.
I think that I'm fairly confident that I'm gonna be able to justify this to
Okay.
everybody. Kind of try not to come very frivolous. But I understand.
Thanks.
Okay, we have the motion seconded. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Justin, we'll see you soon. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Nathaniel.
Is he determined on site or are we coming back?
I would trust Justin to determine on site.
Absolutely trust him, sure.
Me too.
All right.
Good question.
Sounds good. Y'all have a good week.
Yep.
You too.
Okay. Next is another long one. 120 President's Circle. And I don't think anyone is here to represent that. Is it? Well, let me go ahead. I just wondered, to ask staff, is it possible to change order? There's some things, people are not going to be here, but we have gentlemen for other issues that are here and been waiting.
You can amend the agenda, you need a motion second.
Okay.
Yep.
I would like to amend the agenda so that the items of 612 South Laurel and 125 as well as 129 Alwyn Drive be moved to the present moment.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'd like to call 612 South Laurel. Thank you for your patience.
See how cooperative we are?
Ma'am?
See how cooperative we are?
Yes.
Willing to work with you.
I represent the Catholic diocese that owns a house in 612 South Laurel. They want to build a garage in the back. We went through the BAR and the BAR recommended we go have the arborist review. And so here we are. So what we've decided to do is relocate the garage to get it in the center, kind of open area of the backyard to kind of find the sweet spot between the trees. Our company, I work for Tupco, we're the general contractor. We have hired Natural Directions to assist us coming up with the solution. And the solution we have now is to relocate it kind of based on the drawing you got up there. And then Natural Directions will, once we have the pad located, they're going to air spade for the foundation, and root prune, and then we'll inject root treatment of the areas of the garage and the drive. As far as the driveway, we are proposing using 789 stone. We will not do any excavation. We will just rake as far as getting loose limbs, leaves, things out, and fill the driveway with 789 flush to the existing roots.
Okay. The concrete patio, I'm not sure if you mentioned that or not, but I know it's going to be removed. And
Yes.
how's that going to be removed? What kind of equipment or what's?
Well, what we typically on something like that, we would use a little mini excavator with tracks and no wheels.
Mhm.
We'll just kind of break it up with some sort of hammer,
Okay.
grab it with the claw, back out, load it out on the street.
Any roots you come in contact with, will those be pruned as well then?
Well, we're not putting anything back.
Right, but still, if you damage some roots, these jagged
Yes.
cuts.
Yeah, what
Okay.
we'll do is once we remove it, then we'll have Mike Russell from Natural Directions come out and take a look
Okay,
at it.
okay.
And he's gonna aerate if need be and,
Yeah.
and with an air spade and do all that.
Where would the aerating happen?
Well, for instance, when they took up the patio and as Clark indicated, they had to sever some roots. That patio's been sitting there, so that
Okay.
soil is, might be compacted. They could aerate that.
Okay. Okay.
Or any other places where there was root compaction or disruption. Okay.
So only new concrete would actually just be the physical garage,
Mhm.
no driveway, no pad, no walks or anything.
I even thought about taking out half of the patio. How would that be? You'd still have some. Take out half of the part that's closest to the drive.
Yeah, that's something we can discuss with the client. I would leave it. Just get enough out of the way for us to get the driveway through.
And then, of course, the position is, this is not the final position of the garage on this drawing, is that correct?
On this drawing, that is the final.
It is the one.
Yes.
Oh,
Originally, it was, when we came into the BAR, it was, the driveway was straight back and it was sitting right there. We moved it in order to be able to get into the center of the yard away from the trees. So that's kind of the position of it now.
that's right. The stakes are out there with a very old original location.
So, I'm sorry. I think the Tupco and Natural Directions and the diocese have worked well together and put together a very sound plan that really takes into account not only the client's wishes, but the health and vigor of the trees. So I commend them all for that. And consequently, if you're ready for a motion, I move to approve this plan as submitted.
I'll second it.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed? Good luck with the project.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. 125 Alwyn Boulevard. I thought you were 129.
I'm on 25. At least I pay taxes for it. Anyway, good morning.
Morning.
I got a multi-branch
Right,
gum tree in my backyard. And, a lot of my neighbors are upset because it encroaches in their yard as far as branches hanging over and of course makes a mess.
well, we've certainly heard about the sweet gum balls before. It can't be a singular reason for removal unless it's a really drastic situation. However, we didn't speak a lot about the branches going over to the neighbor's side. Is there a picture of the canopy of this tree?
No, I think we only have pictures. Like here where it's-
Okay,
I'm sorry, I was gonna take pictures because I figured you all did.
well,
Sorry about
they
that.
do, no. This, if that was a stated issue,
But it's not.
well, a huge neighbor's fence and yard in left corner.
So, I see it's dropping limbs. Do you have someone come in from time to time to do any kind of maintenance pruning on that tree?
I have not, but I intend to after this. so.
Sure. That may alleviate some of the issue there.
Yeah, because otherwise, structurally and looking at even the multi-fork tree, that I certainly didn't feel like there was any great threat for risk for falling, splitting, whatever. But the branch issue is something that surely can be dealt with. Presumably, who comes will have knowledge of how much not to take off. There are limits to, we have a ballpark figure of 20%, which is a highly interpretable number because you're not gonna be able to calculate that exactly anyhow when you're taking stuff off a tree and but to be reasonable, particularly if that's a concern of the neighbor and the tree was able to withstand physiologically the removal of trees most threatening to the neighbor's yard, then we could certainly say that's your prerogative. So. Any other questions or comments, statements?
I just, I don't see any real reason to remove that tree. I think maintenance, could take care of the neighbors' issues. It's serving its purpose environmentally and so, no, I just don't see any need to remove it and consequently, I moved, that we not approve its removal.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? We vote?
I was gonna tell you that a lot of times when you've got sweet gums, that's a good job for a teenager or a kid, even younger than a teenager, to pick up those sweet gum balls into a bucket and give them some kind of reward for helping with this. And it doesn't have to be much, but it makes a kid feel like, hey, I'm contributing here. This is a good thing. And that works.
Thank you.
Well, so again, you can, with reason, deal with the branches that are particularly affecting you or you as well as your neighbor. And you have someone who does work for you, I think, or at least you both do know somebody who does work out there, a licensed tree care professional. The tree itself would need what's pretty much called a crown cleaning. There's a lot of dead branches and extra stuff up there that could be tidied up. Any other statements, or questions?
No,
All those
sir.
in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. And now for the last of Alvin Drive. We,
Well, I'm just here to see what y'all think. Y'all come out and look at it.
Yeah.
The tree is a nuisance tree. And I know that y'all said, you know, you didn't see any damage, but I got roots about 8 inches around growing to my house. And then, of course, my water line I showed you runs in front of it. And I got roots all out there, you know, and it's tearing up my front yard. You know, I'm retired. You know, I'm on a limited salary now. And I know there's a lot of things you can talk about, but as far as keeping it clean and all, but the gumballs, I put gutter guards up, and I've got to get up on a ladder several times a year with a broom to sweep the gutters off of my roof, the ball off of my roof. You got green balls, you got brown balls, then you got them little things, limbs that fall out there. I just went, I guess a month ago, I went out and got 4 tall lawn bags filled with just gumballs. I've had my neighbor's kids come over, but you know, I feel like the tree. I'm worried about my water line. That I had the whole house repiped. I guess it's been about a little over 2 years ago. I'm worried about the roots growing into that water line. I'm also worried about going in the house. And like I said, being retired and on limited income, I don't want to wait till I got damaged.
Right.
You know, to try to fix my house and everything. You know, I try to do as much as I can to keep things cleaned up, but you know, the older I get, it's my children are grown and it feels like that I'm putting diapers on the tree and, you know, that's all I do is take care of the tree the whole year round. You know, and like I said, I'm just, the limbs or the roots that tore up my front yard and they continue to rise and they continue to get bigger. And like I said, I just don't want to get, you know, where it's going to cost me thousands of dollars later on when it does get up underneath my carpet. I know it doesn't show any cracks now, but y'all saw the roots. And like I said, those roots are big, you know, giant roots and they keep getting bigger. So, I mean, I got limbs, almost on my roof now, and you know, I'm worried about the shingles and things like that. So, you know, I'd just rather get rid of that tree. I know y'all said it's healthy and everything, and but you know, that's up to y'all. It's your decision to make. I'm just telling you, you know, what I'm going through, and sometimes you got to look at humane decision too. Like I said, paying somebody to come out and rake and do all that stuff several times a year. You know, there's a lot involved there, but mostly what I'm worried about is just my pipes and all, where I don't have high expenditures in the future.
with those roots, the way they're growing, because that last 2 years, they really come up out of the ground, they really spread.
Let me ask you about the pipe. You said you got a new pipe in the front yard supply line going to the house?
Right, it's only about, I would say maybe 5 feet or 6 feet. He ran it from the water main
Right.
all the way across, because it goes into the corner of my garage up by my front door. So
Mhm.
it went right by that tree. And they put that in, like I said, I'm worried about them roots, you know.
Why
maybe
did they put another pipe in there? What was wrong with the old pipe?
it was something busted under the house. I don't know whether there was a root or something that did that, but they had to, it was under, I mean, you could hear it running.
Right.
And it was under the house. So, you know, they had to repipe the whole thing.
It might have been pinhole. You know what that is? I think it might have been pinhole. It's about the right age.
So I don't know, but anyways, they had to, that was about $5,000 to get that done.
Do you know how deep they had to install that pipe? How deep in the
Yeah,
ground?
he ran a trench through there, and I would say it was probably maybe about, it wasn't deep. I would say maybe 4, 5, 6 inches at the most. I mean, he didn't dig a canal there. He just ran it, you know, straight on up and underneath the sidewalk up to the corner where it went into the garage and the hot water heater and all.
Okay. But he did have to trench where the tree is now, the roots of that gum tree. Did he have to trench through that root system to?
Well, they weren't that big then. He ran it across there, and them roots the last couple of years, I'd say that was 2 or 2.5 years ago when he did that. And that roots all out front, those have come up since then, and that's why I'm concerned about it, you know. I said, I don't want to get in there and have to replace a water pipe, and I don't want to have to get in there, you know, and do something if it gets up and starts cracking the brick on my foundation.
Right, okay.
So,
Well, for discussing this, if we deal with the possibility of roots encroaching into the foundation of the house to start with, let's do that as number one. We just couldn't tell anything, because I didn't see any surface roots that were encroaching in the house. But if that, I think there's some pine straw anyway, with some sort of mulch that's in there. If that were pulled back and there was just a narrow trench dug along that foundation so we could see if there are any roots anywhere close by, that would help me make a decision as far as.
well,
Is
they
it-
got one, right, that center bush, right there. Well, actually, that center bush on both sides, I guess it's probably 2 feet from the foundation on, I mean, you can see the top of it coming up, and like I said, that root's got to be that big where it's coming up over the ground. So if it's 2 feet from there and it's running underneath there, I'm sure that it runs, you know, a lot farther than that. That's a big root, actually on both sides.
Well, but if you might remember, I had my hiking stick with me, and I was pulling the hiking stick along there, trying to edge out a little bit of dirt, and I just didn't see anything against the foundation. And I'm not saying it's not there. I'm just saying based on what I saw, I couldn't see anything. And you may have heard that earlier today that even if there is one that's coming there, it is possible to root prune. And what troubles me is in the front is the water line. That's what I have been, believe it or not, I've been thinking about your particular problem all weekend long. And I'm guessing that if they buried a water line 6 inches, that's up to town code. I don't know what that is, but that seems a little shallow to me. But at any rate, if it's a supply line, what was it like, best of your recollection? What was it? Was it like 1.25 inches inside diameter, 1.5 inches
I
outside?
mean, it was a small pipe, but I mean, it's the one that runs the water
Right.
from the thing into the house. So
Right.
I don't remember exactly how big it was.
Yeah, but
But
so,
I mean, it's still, you know, it was enough to run.
Water, yeah.
All the water for the house through there.
so it's probably 1.5 inches outside, but even if it's 2 inches,
It wouldn't be that big.
but
1 inch for residential supply lines.
Okay. outside. Is,
ID, uses the ID.
okay, so 1.5 inches.
Outside, they call it a 1 inch.
Right.
I thought it was 3/4.
Well, I mean,
1 inch is the biggest.
Oh, yeah, that's the biggest, right, right,
for
right.
residential.
So at any rate, so it's running through there and I'm visualizing if it's running on a diagonal. And if roots are coming from that tree, the likelihood that that a root is going to actually interface with a 1 inch pipe can happen, but it's pretty slim. Now, could it go over the top and grow and push it down? Yes. Could it grow underneath and grow and push it up? Yes. But I just don't know what the likelihood of that is. That's what I've been struggling with all weekend.
I think if that was, a great likelihood, you'd see an issue more times than not with other houses around the city or town. I don't think that's that big of a likelihood either. I think we'd see it be more commonplace.
Well, I'm just looking at future bills.
I
mean,
understand.
The way things are going up now, and you know what the economy is and everything, and
Right.
come 2 or 3 years down the road for me to have to fix my house or have somebody come out and redo that, and you're talking about maybe thousands of dollars. I mean, that's tough on somebody. I mean, I wanted to solve it before we actually had the problem. And,
I understand.
Well, one thing is certain, I think, and that is no matter what, we need to establish whether those roots are in the process of or about to challenge your foundation. I agree with the water scenario, they should have just steered clear of the tree and come down and then made an L going up the side of the sidewalk to avoid that, because it's a common concern, as this gentleman just said, that you don't hear about much of trees crushing. You hear about sewer pipes more than water lines getting crushed and cracked by surrounding tree roots. But I think it's paramount, no matter what, short of removing the tree, is to establish what the situation is at the foundation of the house. And it wouldn't take that much. You might not want to dig it, but that's not a very big frontage there. To just identify the threat, be it there. You
Yeah,
mentioned about,
I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm sorry.
you mentioned about removing some of the lower branches. You certainly are able to do that. You don't want them sitting on, what did we hear? Nathaniel, 15 feet from tip to roof? No, that sound, 15, was it feet? That's a bit excessive.
That's on a
But-
pine tree.
Pine tree, but certainly there's branches that can be removed, for sure. I'm perplexed about the water potential problem, as well. It's just hard to cut down a whole big healthy tree because of an unproven and unsubstantiated threat. But I understand exactly why you're looking at it the way you do.
And there are times when a root does not penetrate, it will hit an immovable object and change direction. If it's just a little bit, it's enough to make a difference. I've got a friend that I've looked at her driveway and there's a tree and that root, and it's gotten to where it's a sizable root now, but it got to the driveway the driveway, and somehow it turned. And now there's a sizable root that is running parallel to the driveway. And I'm sitting in there and admiring that. I think, golly, look at that. So there are times when they'll change direction a little bit, and a little bit can make a difference.
well, I'm gonna let Travis, I mean, we've already talked about it, and he is gonna take some of them limbs off, because I don't wanna ruin my roof. So
Right.
he's gonna take them up, and when he's out there, I guess if we gotta trim some of them roots, then we'll have to do it. He said that he could do that. But I'm gonna do something with those ones close to the house.
That's the ones I'm speaking of, that's an urgent question. Unless, you take the tree down, as you can see. We're reluctant to just cut a tree down in using a crystal ball about what might happen. Unless there's other issues with the tree. This is a very healthy tree. So if Travis is willing to do that, to examine, for the roots, and then, you know, if it's something that, as you heard of previous discussion, if the nature of the roots are such that are going onto the house that are so substantial that they would, you know, jeopardize the tree's future, we might need to look at it, or arborist might like to look at it again.
Well, yeah, and if there are roots that are so substantial that they are truly endangering the foundation,
Right.
then I'll change my mind and say, yeah, that tree needs to be removed.
Rather
So,
than
so that's
challenge-
why it might be worth your while to just the width of a shovel or half the width of a shovel down 10 inches or so along the frontage of your house to see if there are any roots that are actually getting close. And if there are, then we might change our mind. But
There are people that have instruments that will go and dig a trench just right at your foundation. And it'd be behind your shrubs that you've got there, maybe a 2-inch ditch or trench to find out what is there. That way it's hidden. It's not like it's going to interrupt anything. You probably get some of the roots of those shrubs though. But what you're after is the tree, find out what is happening to the tree. You've heard us talk about root pruning today a good bit. And I realize that every tree is different, every site is different. And so that's the reason we have to look at each one separately.
Well, like I said, I'll let Travis look at that,
Okay.
whatever he thinks. I just don't want to cut the roots and then it kill the tree. Of course, if the tree's dead, I guess y'all have to take it down.
Yeah, well, we would allow removal if the roots appeared to be, if they were cut, as Jenny just said, if they were cut, they would probably substantially threaten a tree's health. Then we would say, yes, take the tree down.
Okay, and that's what I was concerned about. Like I said, that, those roots up in the garden bed, just a
Yeah.
few of them's coming up like this.
We
So
saw.
I mean, that's some big old roots.
Yes, it is.
And I was afraid, you know, if you trim them off there, you know, then what it's gonna do to the tree.
Right.
Well, the only place that we would approve root pruning is up next to the house.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. Those
Okay, I
things
just-
about where the roots are coming up there, that one of them is only about probably 2 feet from the actual wall. And like I said, the thing's that big around.
I just fear that sometimes people, when we say root pruning, they think they can go up right next to the trunk. And
No,
that-
I'm not
that-
gonna come that far, but I just want to get it away from
Yes.
the wall, you know, the base of the house.
Yes.
And if they're there and we could cut them off, but there again, like I said, I was just concerned that doing anything with the root system like that would cause it to kill the tree.
with a sweet gum, as long as you don't remove too many, you'll be all right. Generally speaking, and that looks like a healthy tree, so I would think so.
Okay.
Hey, let me make a motion that we deny removal of the tree and highly recommend that inspection be made of the roots of that tree challenging the foundation.
I'll second that.
It's too late to amend them,
Is it?
I think. I just want to be sure that, feel free to come back to us.
Okay,
Yes.
well, I, like I said, I know that Travis looked at it and he thought it needed to come down, and I know he called him and talked to him after he left my house.
Right.
So, I wish I had some, well, y'all saw it, but I took pictures and I deleted them. I did send them to Travis Sanders, so. I mean, it's up to y'all, whatever, you know, there's nothing else I can do, so. You know, I'll just bring in my concerns.
That's
appreciate it.
fine, I appreciate it, and, but again, feel free to come back if that scenario of the roots is very challenging. And Travis says, once he exposes them, that, we're happy to view it again.
Yeah, just have him put together a letter stating, so if he feels like those roots are gonna be a real issue for the house.
Okay,
And we'll reconsider, yeah.
all right, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. So the last order of business is today is 120 President's Circle. That was the one with the forest in the backyard.
Yes.
They were allegedly, they wanted to make the backyard, there's no room for children or pets. I personally don't think the removal of the 3, not the 5, because two trees did not have flagging on them anymore. So, and there's no one here to tell us why. So, to remove those 3 trees would not substantially improve the trafficability of that otherwise wonderful backyard
Mhm.
forest that it was with all kind of big trees. But be that as it may, there were the trees of, only tree of real concern, well, 2 of them. Tree number 1 is a large longleaf growing through the canopy of a live oak that was pinned on one side and then on the other by 2 branches of the live oak that the pine was. A lot of speculation about, how much damage. I was not willing to suggest removal or approve removal of that tree unless someone could physically demonstrate if death was actually already occurring from the pinch point. And there was a special name for it that I didn't know.
Inoculation.
Inoculation.
That's more of the trees growing together. It was kind of at a stage where there could be some possible inoculation. When we went, we had more wind, so we could actually see.
They were separated.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Not that they're more static.
So that's when it's static, you call it that,
Well, I just use static dynamic.
right? But it's oscillation or whatever, that's when they fuse.
That's what they use.
Okay, okay. Tree number 2 was in the back, around the back of the house. Perfectly healthy, big lob. Oh, was tree number 2? No, tree number 2 was the longleaf that had a shallow crown.
Right.
And I didn't see any, it wasn't have as healthy a crown as some of the others, but I didn't see a need to remove it. And number 3 was a healthy one at the back corner of the house. The reasons given don't include, the only thing that tree could present is a threat if it fell down on the house, but the tree was perfectly healthy, as I recall. The loblolly, big one. So those are my observations.
And it was 4 and 5 that were not flagged, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
We guessed about what number 5 might have been, remember?
Yeah.
But,
I just want to make sure I have the numbers right.
well, we, I think you personally assigned the numbers at that site.
Yeah.
So,
So, tree number 1, the, inoculated trees. It seems to me, as I look at them and I'm looking at the growth where they actually did join or made contact with one another, before I would warrant the removal of the pine, I would want an inspection done of the oak to determine whether or not, where those growths have occurred after they joined one another, if decay has moved in those. So I would like to see, before I would approve the pine, that, because maybe it's the oak that needs to be removed, or maybe my hope would be that you could just prune that and not worry about either.
right,
But that's my take on number 1. Number 2 is, that's the one, number 2 is the one with the low LCR.
Mm-hmm.
right.
If we're not going to remove any of the others, that removing that one doesn't really help opening up the yard for children. But I wouldn't have a problem with removing that tree because of the low LCR, leaf to crown ratio. And then, that tree number 3, I see no need to remove whatsoever.
Justin, the owner there, in tree number 1, the reason they want that one removed just because they feel like it's damaging the live oak?
No, there's no mention.
Right, there's no mention of that tree specifically. The reason for removal was to open up the backyard.
That's the only reason. Okay.
And
Gotcha.
unfortunately, our extensive collection of pictures, we could not format the fit onto this. That's why we don't have pictures.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of with Danny on this one, that the one with the low crown ratio, that one I wouldn't have a problem with. The other was, I think they're good trees. I think they ought to remain. Removing that one tree, I don't know if it's going to do anything to accomplish what the owner is trying to do. But I think that would take a large job to get it to the way they want it. They're trying to open up that area back there, but if I was a child, I think I'd rather have it like it is right
Yeah.
now, and that would make it more,
Yeah, me
fun.
more adventuresome.
Yeah,
Right?
I agree.
All right,
There are parks. If kids need to play, they can go, we got parks all over the place.
they got a big front yard.
Yeah, there are places other than that. spot
They
in
took
back
all the
by where
trees down.
are.
I saw that. All right,
So you
any
need
more
a motion?
discussion? Huh?
You need a motion on
I'm
this?
just gonna make a motion.
Go ahead.
I move that we, deny removal of all trees on the application. And suggest that professional attention be paid to tree number 1 and the, live oak that are in contact with each other.
I'll second that.
All those in favor of the motion say aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
You know, if they were to take the live oak out, that pine tree has had support on both sides for so long that pine tree then would probably feel like it was left unprotected or not having the support, and it might pose a problem.
Well, we did kick that around some. But at least if it's still allowed to move now, it's better than one step more.
But we don't have a crystal ball.
Right.
And we're not in charge of the weather or any of the storms that might come. So, and sometimes that needs to be understood. And some of the people that come in and want to blame somebody for what is wrong, or my sidewalk, or my driveway, or the threat to my neighbors, it might break. Any tree might break, but we can't go with that. It would have nothing but grass. And we live in the low country. If we cut down our trees, we're going to turn into a lake or a pond, really soggy soil, which we don't want. And some people don't realize that until later. And then it's too late.
Okay, well, I was about to ask after that summary judgment was passed, but I was very conveniently pointed out that we have missed an item, and it's an important item. 152
Oh, yeah.
Red Bluff Street, and that's my fault. Thank you very much. And this might be a good one, Kim, to listen to. This is a Limehouse Village. And the point at hand is the owner wants to remove 2 trees in his backyard. I wish he were here, because this involves a couple of things that I don't know that we can decide on. The trees were left to satisfy the inches per acre, which is a nice idea. And we noticed that all the houses in that stretch along the street in the back all had isolated trees. However, they're pine trees that have been grown in a dense stand, and now they're standing by themselves. It's only been 6 months or so, I believe, that part of that Limehouse Village has been completed. So those trees haven't had a chance to see truly adverse conditions, and maybe they won't for another 4. Who knows? God, maybe no hurricanes. But they are standing out there. They have the confirmation of having been grown in a dense stand, and very subject to snapping. So the reason given can you get back to that page? I forgot to write that down there. Wow. The reason given was, the tree was shedding limbs, which we know how to take care of. And the other was, for fence installation. This thing was not on the, on the back line, so I don't know about that. But our major concern when we started looking at this was, wow, maybe we could snap, well, if they're really worried and they're not, about being a hazard, I couldn't honestly say there's no chance because it's just sitting out there in the open, having been protected for its entire life up to that point. The only mitigating factor is that the green zone behind it, Justin looked up this morning, and will be permanently green zone. So that offers two things. That offers a buffer, to mitigate some of the wind that might be coming from that direction. It also has a visibility aspect to it. But if we were to allow them to cut it down, then they have to mitigate, and they have to pay for it, the owners, not the developers. That's the one we had trouble wanting to know how to deal with.
That's one of the issues with council having removed the option for property
Yes,
residential owners of paying into the tree fund
yes.
for mitigation. And I mean, that, in my personal opinion, if I were a resident in town and I was faced with this type of situation, I'd be upset that I didn't have that option. Because why is it that a commercial developer has that option and the residents do not?
Agreed.
It doesn't make any sense because this is the exact type of situation where that would be most appropriate.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Just.
Right.
They don't need 13 trees in the backyard to 100% mitigate for that, or whatever the
Measure it is.
total inches would be.
Mhm.
It just seems to me that this type of example would be a prime example to present possibly to council for possibility of reinstating that as an option to homeowners and the residents.
I agree with you.
But unfortunately, staff
Can't do that.
can't make recommendations to council. Boards can ask that the council reconsider. Speak to, the people who are, you're sitting behind their nameplates right now, and they might be more receptive if it comes from the board and or property owners within town that are no longer able to do or utilize that program.
We've had people ask us, well, can I give you some money? I said, we'd love it, but we can't. I'll do that.
Well, and two, we're supposed to be making recommendations anyway to.
That's right. Be a good time to do that.
So I agree.
Yes, we'll do. And I'll start with the mayor. Good way to start. We get along.
He's
There you go.
he's very receptive, he's very interested, and responsive. We've seen just in 4 months.
Yeah.
That he's definitely very invested in doing what's right.
Mhm.
So
It's good.
given that, it's never gonna hurt if our elected officials hear from our appointed boards and or residents of the town in these types of situations.
Okay. I've been thinking about that for quite a while anyhow, a couple of issues. But this is, like you say, this is the perfect example. You can't do any better than this. Forcing the public to pay for a tree that was arranged to be put there. And it's a wonderful idea. It just would probably need more oversight from like, hate to give you more work, Justin, but when these kind of decisions are made, I mean, it's a great idea if you can conveniently save, mature trees as opposed to putting a bunch of small ones out, as long as they make sense. And skinny pine trees don't.
And, you know, obviously if there were hardwoods,
Right.
oaks and other types that were on these lots, those would definitely have been what would have been preserved and,
Yes.
but we still want to preserve the pines in
Mhm,
town.
sure.
I mean,
I know.
that's what the town was built on.
Yeah.
And we have it on our seal. We want to save the pine trees but as you've indicated, it does need to be in a prudent manner that is going to be beneficial, not just saving them for the sake of saving them.
Yeah. And then sometimes that's really tough with pine trees, and be a lot of pine trees around here that are small and young and candidates for development. Okay, I'm glad you reminded me of that, sir. Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Are there any other thoughts, questions, or comments? I have them.
I just move that we approve the removal of those two trees. For the reasons that we discussed, that they're standing out alone. Certainly not helping the landscape of the backyard aesthetically or environmentally. And are a potential threat because they've been buffered for so many years.
So we don't want to ask for any kind of mitigation,
No.
putting some other.
No, but it's required because
Right.
this is a required mitigation, so we're forcing the issue. I would rather not force the issue yet. Because this forces the homeowner to install trees. And he wasn't even wanting these removed for any of the reasons that we spoke of that were of
If he wanted to
safety
put-
risk. I'm uncomfortable forcing the issue at this point.
And if he want to put a fence up, you can easily,
Oh, well.
work around.
I don't know what that was about. So that's my reservation. I do plan to speak with the mayor soon about this. The other reasons were not urgencies. So I don't feel that we need to be urgent right now in removing them.
So you're saying allow removal without mitigation, right? Without forcing mitigation in this situation?
But we can't do that, can we?
I'm not sure. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure if the board can approve without the mitigation.
That might be a bad precedent to set too.
Cause you got,
But, yes, I'm not disagreeing with you, but if you had that authority, then, the fact that the mitigation, the tree bank isn't available to residential. If you have that ability to waive mitigation for residential, you could go a couple different routes. I think obviously reinstating the tree bank is a better option as opposed to waiving required.
Yes.
I agree.
And mitigation. So honestly, I don't know where your authority lands on that. I hate to admit that, but
Okay.
I don't have quick access to look it up. I think it would be a little bit more.
and Peter, I guess when I say mitigation, I'm, not necessarily inch for inch in
No.
this situation, because it
We
would make
wouldn't-
a whole lot of sense.
Right, we wouldn't do that anyhow.
But, we've got a motion on the floor, but we're discussing, but let's continue this. Okay, so if we're discussing, then if the applicant is asked to remove the trees to install a fence, is that what it is? The applicant would have to mitigate anyway, right? If we approve that.
Correct.
That's true, yep. That's the way I understand it.
Yeah, and so
They talk about.
if we're gonna let them remove it for a better reason than they asked, what's the harm in that?
And they said
If-
something about limbs dropping. This
if-
is what pines do.
Yeah, but that's not the issue.
No, what-
If you,
what'd you
the
say?
issue is that they are a threat.
Yes, but that's not you said something about the stated issue. The stated issue was building a fence and branches falling down. And then you said you're working around semantically to present the real reason and have the trees removed for that. That wasn't even the basis for their complaint. That's,
Well, I understand, but I don't know that that's should be I don't know that should be an issue.
I would never approve these trees for those reasons. The stated reasons.
Right, nor would I. But I would approve them for the reasons that we noticed in the field.
Okay, well, I would be more aligned to want to defer this with clarification from staff as to whether we can or cannot, waive the mitigation requirement,
Why? I don't, why?
because I don't know that I can.
But why wait? If the trees would be better off removed from a risk perspective, why wait?
We also.
Because of the expanded ramifications that came from our discussion. First, we don't know if we can or make approval without making them mitigate, because they're mitigating because they're removing part of the requirement of the inches per acre on that lot.
And if this happens, we talked about the fact that these other houses, as we looked down the row of the backyards, they also have trees. And if we allow this to be removed, that could set off a snowball effect.
Which would be a good thing in my mind, because then you remove them and you mitigate with more appropriate trees rather than pine trees that are left out. I see that as a positive, not a negative.
It's a long-term positive, it's a short-term negative because they gotta pay for the trees. $600 a piece.
Well, no, it's not $600 a piece. It's $600 a piece if you hire a landscape company to install them. But if you go buy a 3-inch tree yourself, it's gonna cost you $300.
Okay, well, not many people are gonna go buy a 3-inch tree and plant it. Okay.
I suspect most people do, but
Huh?
if you want to go talk to the mayor, go talk to the mayor, but I just disagree with this, with this tactic, but let's go
It
ahead.
needs to be
Let's go ahead and
addressed.
have a second and a vote, and, we can beat this dead horse
Yeah,
to death.
we are. We have.
So I second the motion,
You made the motion. Which motion are you seconding?
whichever one we're waiting on,
We're waiting on your original motion.
well, then I've made it,
But you can't second your own motion.
thank you.
Well,
I made the I moved, and I will reiterate, I moved that we approve the removal of the trees. And apparently there's no second.
I'm just making sure I understand. You just removal, that's pretty clear, but, and we'll wait to see about mitigation. Is that kind of the,
You didn't wait, it's not in the wording.
Now, I can say that, are these, what are the sizes of these trees?
A 13 and a 16 plus, I think.
Yeah, they were. You had them down here as different sizes. We measured them on site. Remember that, and it was 13 and 16.
Right.
So that's what the sizes are.
13 and 16. So one is protected, one is green. Protected trees, it's 50%
Mhm.
mitigation, grand trees are 100%. If the applicant, the board has the authority to provide variances from the section 8.3, which establishes the tree removal and mitigation standards. So if the applicant were to request a variance based on hardship, and we would typically use the variance standards to establish whether or not a hardship is present. And financial hardship generally does not qualify as a reason for the variance.
Huh.
So technically, there would be, you'd have to establish criteria to approve a variance from section 8.3. And we don't, you have that authority to do so. But I don't think you guys have ever done it before.
Not since I've been on.
Mm-mm.
So the way I read the ordinance, it looks like variances from the requirements are within your purview. But we need to, I think, discuss how and to what extent those variances can be granted. I think that's kind of something that staff would need to look into with your direction. The board can ask us to come up with some standards or criteria that then you could use in this particular instance.
Well, would a hardship be like the size of the yard that we're trying to mitigate for? Because you only have so much room you can put this number of inches in.
And that's something we would have to look at.
We have the ability to say just one tree. We do that and we've done that.
We've been doing that.
Yeah, we do that.
Okay,
It's inch per inch is hard to accomplish.
it is, but we kind of let the arborist get with the homeowner.
Right.
And determine.
Right, that'd be 10 3-inch trees.
All right.
Yeah, right, no.
Yeah, that's not gonna work here.
Just as an aside, if we were to establish that ability, that lessens the import of talking with the mayor or anybody else about this one little dilemma. But it still needs to be changed to go back to where we were.
And like you said, if the homeowner were here, we could, all this could be discussed with the homeowner. And if they realized how much mitigation would be required, they may decide that, hey, I think I'd rather keep the pine tree. Don't know.
All right, there's a motion been made. Is there any second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
I'm opposing.
Huh?
I'll oppose.
Motion fails.
Failed. We need to have a unanimous.
But 2-2, right?
Well, yeah, the motion,
If it's high,
motion failed.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion that we defer judgment on this until we can better iron out our options under the mitigation allowances.
I second that.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Go ahead and get rid of it.
Aye. Opposed?
Get all day.
I abstain.
Okay. One abstention, motion passes. Any other thoughts or questions? Or answers? I move.
Move to adjourn.
I'll second it. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.